Hi friends, so I'm back with my new video, and in today's video we'll be discussing that how we can integrate two functions. The first function which would be calling the REST API, and the second function which will be publishing the message in the Solace PubSub. So we'll be doing this whole integration in I would say 3 steps. One is that we'll be copy the code from the previous session where we already written the code for calling the REST API, and the second function where we'll be publishing the code for the or publishing the message for the in the Solace PubSub. And the second stage will be making the small change so that both the function can talk to each other. And in fifth stage we'll be doing the build and we'll be doing the test. So let's start with the coding part. So I actually have done two things. First is I created a separate directory for this integration activity, and the second thing which I did is I copied the function from publisher side and the REST API side, and these two functions I already explained in my previous video in detail. So I have copied this function which is main, and this function which actually published the message in the Solace queue. So we'll be making the change in these two functions so that they can talk to each other, which means whatever the REST response we'll be getting from this REST API, and we'll be publishing the same in the Solace queue. Let's start with the very first thing, that is changing the name of the function. So we'll make some meaningful name, that is Solace Publisher, and this is done. So one problem has been sorted. Now next thing is that we need to make change in the main function so that whatever the message or the payload which we get from this API, we can pass on to the second function. So what we would be doing is that we'll be putting the information here itself. So to do that, we'll be making two changes. First is we'll be calling the struct. So struct also I have copied because the REST response which we are getting, it will be in a similar format. And how we can generate the struct with the response JSON, that I already covered in my previous videos. I'll try to add the same video in my description section so that you can visit. So what we would do is we'll declare the variable here itself. So what we would do is u will be my variable name, then response body. So I have declared the variable. The very next thing which I would be doing is that whatever the response we are getting from the API, we'll be mapping with this struct. So to do that, we'll put JSON dot unmarshal, and then within bracket we'll put body. This is the first variable in which we'll be storing the response, and then we'll be mapping the whole response, or I would say unmarshalling the whole response in the this variable which we have declared. Now second step is completed. Now what we need to do is we need to call this function so that we can pass on this whole unmarshaled information to Solace Publisher. So to do that, what we would do is we'll put the function here, and we'll pass on this variable here. So now friends, my work in the first function is completed. I am getting this error because here we have not defined, which means we have not make this function compatible to receive input. So to do that, what we would do is we'll put message, and then we'll define the response struct. So now this function is compatible to receive the message in this format, response body, which we defined at the top of the program. That is done, and then here we are kind of doing the publishing the static data. So we'll be removing this, and instead of this, what we would be doing is that we'll be defining this, and then we'll be passing on that buffer to our part of payload. So to do that, first what we would do is we'll create m body, the new variable, error handling, and then JSON dot marshal, and inside that we'll be putting this payload. Once this part is done, the next thing which we would be doing is we would be doing the error handling. So we can copy this and we can paste here. So my error handling is done. The very next thing which we would be doing is we'll be parsing this information in the buffer so that we can pass on this information. So to do that, what we would do is we'll be initializing the new variable or declaring the new variable byte dot new buffer, and inside that we'll be putting the m body. So this is done, and then what we would do is we'll put this variable in the payload section. So friends, my work is completed, and now my first function, whatever the payload it will get from the REST API, it will pass on to this function, and this function will first marshal the complete payload, and then it will initialize the buffer, and the buffer it will pass on the declared value in the request payload, and here we would be publishing the whole payload to I would say in the Solace PubSub. So let's execute this code and see that whether we are getting the response. I would say we are able to publish the message or not. So to do that, what we would do is we'll execute the program. Go run main.go. So we have executed the program. Now we have got this message in the response, and we have not received, so I am assuming that our payload has been successfully published. Now let's go back to and we'll go to our cluster. Inside the cluster, manage VPN, and then inside the queue, now we can see is there are two messages which are already published. So now let's do one thing, let's publish one more message and see whether the count is increasing or not. Or what else can be done is we can select these two messages and we can remove, and then again execute the code and see that whether we are getting the message in the queue or not. Let's do a refresh. So friends, see that we have got the message correctly in our Solace queue. And in my next video, friends, what I would be doing is I'll be writing the consumer to consume the message from this queue. If you like my video, please click on the like button and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.